This week on ANN, leaders of the Seventh-day Adventist Church condemn the horrific mass shooting in Las Vegas.
Adventists are among the 11,000 residents of Ambae, Vanuatu, forced to evacuate due to escalating volcanic activity.
And a nursing student from Washington Adventist University is invited to address the United Nations General Assembly by Nobel Prize winner Malala Yousafzai.
These stories and more coming up.
The deadliest mass shooting in modern United States history occurred Sunday in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Stephen Paddock was armed with at least 23 guns when he stationed himself on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino. There, he fired into a crowd of thousands attending a country music festival.
At least 58 were killed and 520 people were injured.
The president of the Seventh-day Adventist Church offered his deep condolences to the affected families. Ted Wilson said, "I want them to know that in the midst of this chaos, the Seventh-day Adventist family worldwide is praying for the victims and their families."
Leaders from the church's North American territory, through a written statement, also offered prayers for families. Prayers were also offered for the first responders and medical personnel who helped during the aftermath. The statement says, "We ask that all people, no matter their faith, pray for healing for the heartbroken, the injured, and those mourning the loss of their loved ones."
And the president of the church's Pacific Union Territory, which includes the state of Nevada, condemned the violence and grieved with mourning families. Ricardo Graham said, "We stand against anyone who causes death and injury and are heartbroken for those who are suffering such pain and anguish."
Visit news.adventist.org to read the full statements. We will keep you updated on ways Adventists in Nevada help their communities in response to this tragedy.
Members, students, and faculty of Vanuatu's Adventist churches and schools were among the 11,000 who were recently forced to evacuate the nation's island of Ambae. A state of emergency was declared September 24 after reports of escalating activity in the Manaro volcano. Manaro is considered one of the world's most active volcanoes. Evacuation efforts of the residents were spread between the nations of Vanuatu, Australia, New Zealand, and France. The deputy principal of Panama Adventist College, Freddie Casso, said the volcano already affected the school before the mandatory evacuation was issued. According to Casso, volcanic ash had fallen on the school's water source, gardens, and throughout the campus. The executive secretary of the Seventh-day Adventist Church's Vanuatu territory asked for prayer when he delivered the news to other leaders that all members had been evacuated. Charlie Jimmy said, "The Vanuatu National Disaster Management Office will continue to monitor the volcanic activity." He went on to say, "We are asking all members across our region to continue to pray for our church members on the island of Ambae."
A current student of Washington Adventist University addressed the United Nations General Assembly last month during a session on the importance of educating girls. Maria Claire Caberamans is a second-year nursing student of WAU. She spoke during the Financing the Future Education 2030 session. Presenters of the session focused on the crisis affecting 260 million youth who are not receiving an education. She was invited to speak at the UN by Malala Yousafzai. Yousafzai is the Nobel Prize winner from Pakistan who rose to prominence after she was shot in the head, neck, and shoulder by a Taliban gunman while riding a school bus. She was targeted for publicly campaigning for girls to go to school. Yousafzai was 15 years old when she was attacked. At the UN session, the WAU student shared her education journey. Growing up in the Democratic Republic of Congo, she was not allowed to attend school for fear of safety due to ongoing wars. She was only able to go to school after she and her family fled to Zambia. However, she was continuously harassed for being a refugee, which forced her to be in and out of school for 8 years. She moved to the United States in 2015 after her mother was murdered. She said, "When Malala first heard my story, I did not know her, but when I got to know her, she inspired me with her own story. I took her invitation as an opportunity to share my message in the hope that someone will hear with the Spirit to help girls."
Adventist leaders within Mexico are raising and reallocating funds to serve citizens throughout the nation whose lives were devastated by the recent earthquakes. The president of the church's North Mexico territory called on the 150,000 members to pledge commitment to two actions. Luis Arturo King first asked the members to pray. He then petitioned the members to give the equivalent of a day's salary once a month for 2 months to those who've been rendered homeless. Church leadership in the area also directed budgeted evangelism funds for the remaining of 2017 to projects to assist affected members in the central and southern parts of Mexico. Further, churches will collect special offerings that will go directly to affected families and residents in Mexico. The offerings will also go to members in the Caribbean who are recovering from Hurricanes Irma and Maria.
Grassroots efforts by Adventists in Mexico have included a nearly week-long donation drive by students and faculty at Montemorelos University. The volunteers collected imperishable food, cleaning supplies, and personal hygienic items. The group also collected a special offering to help rebuild 2 Adventist schools that were destroyed in southwestern Mexico. In addition, a group of Adventist Development and Relief Agency volunteers traveled 19 hours from Monterrey to cities located in Morelos. The state of Morelos was hit the hardest out of all the regions affected by the 7.1 magnitude earthquake that struck on September 19. The group included doctors, paramedics, nurses, and rescue personnel. The 5-day trip was sponsored by Morelos' Congress, which provided supplies and transportation needed to clear debris.
According to ADRA's coordinator for Dominica, the nation's government is looking to the Seventh-day Adventist Church during its time of crisis. Priscilla Prevost said the agency's work after past hurricanes has inspired confidence in the work ADRA will do in the wake of Hurricane Maria. Prevost said the houses built after Hurricane Erika in 2015 are still standing as a testimony to ADRA's work. Strategic plans for relief efforts include fundraising to assist the distribution of food, water, tarps, and medical supplies. The agency will also arrange for volunteers to help clean up the island. ADRA will also call on skilled volunteers to help rebuild structures and professionals to offer counseling services.
Adventist leaders are also assessing how the church's members and properties have been affected. Samuel Telemac is the Sabbath School director for the church's Inter-America territory in which Dominica is located. He traveled to his native country to accompany the church's local leaders during their visits. He said, "There are no trees, no more coconut trees, no more banana trees. You can see one end of the island to the other. It seems so transparent." According to Telemac, all of the nation's 7,000 Adventist members have been impacted by the storm. All but 5 of the 34 Adventist churches in the nation were completely destroyed. The 4 Adventist schools on the island were severely damaged. Further, all the school's computers and laptops were stolen. Stay up to date with how Adventists are serving nations affected by Hurricane Maria by visiting interamerica.org.
Loma Linda University last month received 2 grants of more than $2 million combined from the National Institutes of Health, or NIH. NIH is the largest biomedical and public health research agency in the world. The agency has given Loma Linda nearly $40 million for research over the past decades. The most recent grant was given to researchers within the University School of Medicine. The $1.7 million from NIH will fund a team's efforts to create treatment for hydrocephalus. The condition, also called water on the brain, is the buildup of excessive cerebrospinal fluid in the brain and can lead to irreversible damage. It can be caused by injury or disease, but many cases are seen among premature infants. The money from NIH will fund research using fetal rat brains to study whether mechanisms that produce cerebrospinal fluid can be manipulated.
The university also received $1.4 million last month for researchers of its School of Public Health. The funds will go toward developing research methods for enhancing the effectiveness of tobacco control programs in East Asia.
Researchers will create a survey to analyze the capacity for tobacco control in Cambodia, Laos, and Mongolia. The countries were chosen because they signed the World Health Organization's Framework Convention on Tobacco Control Treaty. The treaty focuses on patterns of tobacco sales and use.
The countries agreed to place significantly higher taxes on cigarettes to discourage teenagers and average users from buying them.
According to Dr. Pramal Singh, the principal investigator for the grant, nearly half the male population in Cambodia, Laos, and Mongolia are smokers. Singh is also the director for the university's Center for Health Research.
He and his colleagues will develop mobile applications for 33 tobacco control scientists and their staff.
Researchers will ask smokers for permission to photograph the tax stamps on their cigarette packets and geocode the location of where the cigarettes were purchased.
Coming up, a film by an Andrews University alum is selected as a finalist for the 2017 Student Academy Awards.
And up next, an Adventist multi-purpose hall in Vanuatu is designated to host games for the Oceania region's premier multi-sports event.
We're so glad you joined us today. We'll see you right after the break.
Welcome back. The capital city of Vanuatu is preparing to host the 2017 Pacific Mini Games, or VAN 2017. Port Vila will welcome athletes from 24 nations and territories for the Oceania region's premier multi-sporting event.
The 2017 Pacific Mini Games, which are held every 4 years, will take place December 4 through 15. Participants will compete in 14 sports, including archery, judo, tennis, and rugby.
The president of Seventh-day Adventist Church's Vanuatu territory recently signed an agreement to allow VAN 2017 to use the church's new multi-purpose hall in Port Vila. The hall will be used for the event's weightlifting competitions.
According to Nos Terry Mailalong, the meeting also served as an opportunity for officials to see how the hall could be used as an evacuation center for future natural disasters.
Mailalong said, "When VAN 2017 approached us about using this facility for the Games, we were happy to assist because this hall is not intentionally built just for mission programs. It is planned for other denominations or groups to use the building as well, as long as they abide by the conditions of use agreement put forward by the church."
He went on to say, in the long run, this area is going to be very beneficial to all our communities, so let's work together to build that relationship for the interest of our people.
The hall is currently under construction but will be completed by the end of this month. It is expected to seat up to 5,000 people.
A recent alum of Andrews University was selected as one of 7 finalists for the 2017 Student Academy Awards. Nina Valados' film Sisterly was chosen out of more than 1,600 documentary entries. The Student Academy Awards were established to support and encourage excellence in filmmaking at the collegiate level. Valado graduated magna cum laude from Andrews University with a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Documentary Film this past May. The short documentary was initially created for her senior project. Sisterly tells the story of Valados' relationship with her sister Lisa, who is on the autism spectrum. Valado said, "We just found things we could do together, things Lisa loved, like puzzles and memory and everything Disney." Sisterhood can be complicated, messy, or broken, but it's still sisterhood. Sisterly is currently showing at private screenings for film festivals. Visit facebook.com/sisterlyfilm to stay up to date on news about the film and when it will be released to the public.
According to Human Rights Watch, Papua New Guinea is one of the most dangerous places in the world to be a woman or girl. Approximately 70% of women will experience rape or assault in their lifetime. Dr. Brad Watson, senior lecturer in International Poverty and Development Studies, teamed up with ADRA and the church's South Pacific Territory to address the violence against women. Watson and a group of students from Avondale College formed the advocacy campaign, They Are Not Alone. The campaign's goals are to raise awareness of domestic violence and to raise $100,000 through projects with ADRA Australia. The team has raised nearly $50,000 so far, mostly through allocated funds from the church's South Pacific Territory. Students are using Facebook, collaborating with Adventist magazine Adventist Record, and organizing awareness days for one of the campuses of Avondale. They have also partnered with 4 women's ministries directors for local church administrative regions and local churches in Australia.
The Gulf region of the United States and Caribbean nations are still recovering from Hurricanes Harvey and Irma. The Assistant Director for Adventist Chaplaincy Ministries in North America is Chaplain Washington Johnson II. He also serves as Commander and Deputy Chaplain of the United States Coast Guard for Reserve Matters. It is in the latter capacity that he's worked around the clock to assist hurricane victims by facilitating religious support. He's done this by providing pastoral care to service members stationed in the United States Coast Guard's National Capital Region Call Center. He also dispatches reserve chaplains to areas affected by the 2 storms.
A fire that broke out at an Adventist church in Rome has caused nearly $12,000 worth of damage. 3 women who were temporarily housed in the church used fire extinguishers to control the flames as they waited for firefighters and police officers to arrive. The church's pastor said, "If the firefighters arrived 15 minutes later, nothing would have been left of our church." The fire's damage was widespread throughout the building. It damaged the church's electrical system, bathroom, entrance, air conditioning system, and various equipment. The 3 women were taken to the hospital for slight smoke inhalation, but were released shortly after admittance. Officials have yet to determine the cause of the fire. The church has been declared unsafe for use for the time being.
And finally, for the news this week, the Geoscience Research Institute and the John 10:10 Project released a film last month in preparation of Creation Sabbath.
The Whole is a 5-minute film that uses nature to depict the relationship between creation and the gospel.
The film features footage shot in the mountains of Mexico where monarch butterflies spend the winter in other locations including Hong Kong, Chicago, and London.
Timothy Standish is a scientist and filmmaker of the Adventist Church's Geoscience Research Institute. He is calling for all Seventh-day Adventist Church affiliated entities and organizations to share The Whole from now until Creation Sabbath, October 28.
Standish said, "My hope is that The Whole will be seen by every member of the Adventist Church on Creation Sabbath. But more than that, this is a film that can be proudly shared with our friends, those who belong to other Christian denominations as well as those who are not yet Christians."
And the Lord said, "Look, I am making everything new. I will replace your heart of stone with a heart that is sensitive to me. I will renew your mind and give you a future filled with hope. Come, you who are weary, and I will give you rest."
Visit creationsabbath.net to watch or download the film.
Coming up, know an Adventist student attending a public college or university? Learn how they can connect to a global public campus ministries weekend.
But up next, see who broke the law in England in order to translate the Bible from Hebrew and Greek to English for the first time.
Do you have sitting disease?
I don't know.
Do you sit all day?
Yes.
Are you known to your friends as a sitaholic?
Yes.
Do you sit all day at work, then get home and sit even more?
I do.
Data from the National Health and Nutrition Examination shows that more than half of people sit at least 6 hours a day. This sitting time has been linked to metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and a whole slew of other problems. If you've been sitting for more than an hour, you've been sitting too long.
We've got to get up.
By cutting your sitting time in half, you can increase your life expectancy by up to 2 years. Find ways you can stand more during your day. Pace when walking on your phone. Have walk and talk meetings. Set an alarm to remind you to walk every hour. Stand up and start living longer today.
Welcome back.
Even though a law in England prohibited the Bible from being translated into English, this notable reformer said, "I defy the Pope and his laws."
Get a glimpse into the life and persevering faith of William Tyndale, the translator of the first English Bible.
The 16th century was populated by some of the greatest minds in religious history: Luther, Calvin, Zwingli, Knox, Latimer, Ridley, Cranmer. And sitting comfortably amongst this group of luminaries was William Tyndale, translator of the English Bible. Tyndale was born in Gloucestershire in 1494 in a small village called North Nibley, marked today by this monument overlooking the village. He was educated at Oxford and completed his BA in 1512 and his MA in 1515 before coming here to Cambridge University, where he met Dutch scholar Erasmus, who was teaching Greek. Tyndale wanted to translate the Bible into English, but no one in England was willing to undertake such a daring task. Since 1408, the Oxford Commission had forbidden the translation of the Bible into the English language, even prohibiting its use in the training curriculum for preachers. Cochalius, a notorious papal theologian, had this perspective: the New Testament translated into the language of the people is in truth the food of death, the fuel of sin, the veil of malice, the pretext of false liberty, the protection of disobedience, the corruption of discipline, the depravity of morals, the termination of concord, the death of honesty, the wellspring of vices, the disease of virtues, the instigation of rebellion, the milk of pride, the nourishment of contempt, the death of peace, the destruction of charity, the enemy of unity, the murderer of truth. Immersed in such a climate, Tyndale encountered a learned friend who said, "We were better without God's laws than the Pope's." To which Tyndale responded, "I defy the Pope and all his laws. If God spare my life ere many years, I will cause a boy that driveth the plough shall know more of the scriptures than thou doest." Forbidden to work in England, Tyndale traveled through Europe, from Hamburg to Cologne to Worms to Antwerp, using the Greek and Hebrew text to craft a masterpiece of the English language. Time and time again, the papacy tried to stop his work, but the Lord watched over his servant. One account tells us how the Bishop of Durham, seeking to hinder his work, bought all his Bibles, but this merely provided him with the money he needed to produce a larger number of better quality Bibles. Tyndale contributed as much to the scholarship of English literature as Shakespeare and Chaucer, producing many of the translations of the Bible that we use today. In fact, much of the King James Bible, produced 60 years later, was taken almost verbatim from Tyndale's Bible. Phrases such as, "The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. O death, where is thy sting? And seek ye first." All these came from William Tyndale. Today, there are 2 remaining copies of Tyndale's Bible, one of which is here in the British Library, purchased for £1 million and accessible to view free of charge. Sadly, Tyndale was betrayed by Henry Phillips in Antwerp, who feigned friendship in order to gain Tyndale's trust and betrayed him to guards as he was leaving his house. He was taken to a castle in Vilvoorde, Belgium, condemned as a heretic, strangled and burned to death in 1536. His last words were, "Lord, open the King of England's eyes." Within 1 year of his death, a Bible was placed in every parish church throughout the whole of England by order of the King. The poignant Christian song tells us, "Martyrs' blood stains each page. They have died for this faith. Hear them cry through the years. Oh, hear these words and hold them dear." The Word of God has come to us at such great cost. May we not treat it flippantly, haphazardly, but may we treasure it and commit to study and share God's Word each day.
Visit lineagejourney.com to learn more about this series on the spiritual heritage of Christianity.
Church leaders have designated October 20 and 21 as Global Public Campus Ministries Weekend.
Participants will be challenged to empathize, engage, and empower.
Emily Mistrapa has more on how you can join on the program online.
Do you know any young professionals or young adults that want to be more engaged with their community? Let them know about Global PCM Weekend, or Global Public Campus Ministries Weekend, on October 20 to 21. This special weekend recognizes the importance of public campus ministries and celebrates campus ministry across the globe. This year's theme is Empathize, Engage, and Empower. Starting on Friday night, you can follow along with live feeds from different divisions of the church. They'll show what they're doing to support this ministry. On Sabbath, there will be a live event from the church headquarters. You can watch these live videos from their Facebook page, Global PCM Weekend, or on Hope Channel. You can follow along throughout the entire weekend on Twitter with the hashtag PCM17 and by following Adventist PCM. Visit pcm.adventist.org to register and for more information. I hope you can join us for Global PCM Weekend.
And finally, for today's program, let's turn to Benjamin Baker for a look at Adventist history.
This week, we'll get a glimpse into the life of the youngest person ever elected as an officer of the Adventist World Church.
Welcome to This Week in Adventist History. This week, on October 7, in 1852, Frederica House was born near Elmira, New York. Raised in a large household that was not Adventist, House first encountered the message at 7, but actually accepted the faith while a student at Battle Creek more than 10 years later. In her early 20s, House was integral to the administration of the Adventist Church. In August 10 and 11 of 1875, she was elected secretary of the Seventh-day Adventist Publishing Association, then our only publishing house, and treasurer of the Michigan Conference, then the largest conference. 4 days later, she was unanimously elected treasurer of the General Conference, becoming the second of 3 women to hold the position and one of 3 women in the history of the church to serve as an executive officer of the General Conference. Additionally, when elected, she was 22 years old and unmarried, thus the youngest and the only single person ever elected as an officer of the General Conference. Cicely would get married months later on October 27 to William Conqueror Cicely of the storied Cicely family of early Adventism, the ceremony performed by Uriah Smith. William was a significant pioneer in his own right. The couple would give their lives in service to their church, serving as missionaries in England, William's native country, from 1901 and staying until 1918, when they went on to retire in Nashville, Tennessee, USA. William died on September 23, 1932, after 55 years of marriage. Frederica followed him on January 25, 1934, age 81. And that was This Week in Adventist History.
Thanks for watching ANN. Join us next week for more news from the headquarters of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
We'd love to hear from you. Send us your feedback and tell us how your church is making a difference in its community.
Be sure to capture plenty of video footage and photos, then write up a summary of the event's important details, and feel free to send full video reports as well.
You can reach us by sending an email to annvideo11@gmail.com.
Before we say goodbye, here's some good news from the book of Matthew, chapter 11, verse 28.
In the passage, Jesus says, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest."
That's our program for this week, and remember, you can always visit news.adventist.org for daily news and videos. Until next time, God bless.
Take care.